It's Lisa from Been There Got Out, and we are actually now seriously going live with our guest, Beth Tibbott from Tibbott Richardson Law. And she's a family lawyer, and she actually got in touch recently. I think here she is. Okay. So anyway, we're really excited. We met via Zoom a few weeks ago, and we came up with a bunch of ideas of things we want to talk about that I think are going to help you guys. So I had just said, about your name and your law firm, but let's get right to it and talk about how your degree in psychology, how did it lead you to family law?
Yes. Well, it was a circuitous route, I can tell you that much. So I was always drawn to psychology. So I decided to pursue a degree in that. I started with social work. And when I was in college, at the community college actually, and I was still kind of wayward and didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I had a lot of different interests, but I knew I wanted to help people above all. So I started with a group called CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates. And in Pennsylvania, we do have guardian ad litems, but we also have this group called CASA. I'm not sure if you're familiar.
No, no, tell us.
It's the volunteer equivalent of a guardian ad litem. So it is a well-trained guardian ad litem, but is not an attorney. And so the courts appoint this person in difficult situations and have them do the same thing a guardian does, but the person's not an attorney. So while I was in college, I got involved in that program. And that really gave me insight into the court system, how the things really work, which
Mm-hmm.
quite frankly was shocking, and not in a good way. And so I quickly realized that if I do want to have any true power to help people, that was not where it was going to happen. Being a social worker wasn't going to be my level of helping people. That's not what I wanted to do. So I decided to go to law school. And I went to college and I said, what can you give me a degree in that it will get me to law school the absolute fastest? They looked at me like I was absolutely crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, what if you don't get in? And I was like, what? It's a foreign concept to me, right? Like you set your mind to something and you do it. So they said psychology. I said that's perfect because that's what I wanted to do anyway. Um, so that's how I ended up with a psychology degree. Um, and then during law school, I actually decided I didn't like family law that much, which was interesting. So after getting a traditional education in family law, I was like, oh, this kind of sucks. I don't really want to fight over lamps. Like it's just not my thing. I don't want to do it. Um, and then after law school, when I got a job with a firm that didn't have enough real estate law for me to do, which is what I thought I wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
they said, look, you have to focus on some criminal defense and some family law, or I can't give you a job. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to do that. And as life does, sometimes things come to you. And I got right back where I started. And I said, actually, I think this is what I love. This is where I belong.
So
Um,
interesting, especially with
yeah,
the background with CASA and seeing it from the perspective of someone who didn't really have much power, but had so much say in a court case,
mm-hmm.
which affects the lives of children and families.
Yes.
So I was going to say, so you do have a lot of power as an attorney, which is wonderful. But
Yeah, if you use it
we,
wisely, sure.
yeah. So, we are Chris and I are high conflict divorce coaches. And of course, our cases are extreme. And one of the common complaints that people have about their own attorneys is that their attorney is not doing anything. Like we know how often it is in these cases that when opposing counsel will say fling all kinds of false allegations on the record, and then victims, coming out of these terrible relationships feel like their lawyers are not protecting them enough. But when we spoke about this, I think you said there's a reason that sometimes lawyers don't. Can you talk about how doing less or at least appearing to not do anything is actually a strategy?
Yes, I absolutely can. So, other than I mean, the obvious things like every court has different rules of procedure. So you might go to a hearing thinking you're going to get a chance to tell your story, and you get there, and your lawyer didn't tell you that that's actually not why you're there, and you're not going to get a chance to talk, and you're not going to get a chance to say anything. And I think that miscommunication or lack of communication is one of the largest reasons people do get frustrated. So other than the procedural things, you can go in and you can smash things up with a blunt instrument and use a hammer or a sledgehammer, right? Or you can go in and cut things up with a scalpel. And we prefer the surgical approach. And oftentimes that requires patience on not only our part, because believe me, we want to go in there and, we're advocates, fierce advocates, and we want to say, like, sit down, shut up, you're wrong. This person is abusive, and this is what happened, A, B, C, D. And it's just not the time. And we know it because of all the experience. And we also know that they're trying to set you up to fall right into the trap of being the crazy person.
Exactly.
And so we have to be really strategic and patient, going into things and really laying out a plan for how they unfold instead of just being reactionary. You're not a victim anymore. You're not. The second you leave, you have way more power than you know you have. And when you can get an attorney that knows what they're doing and can help you through those hard times where you do want to react and where they have pushed your trigger, or pulled your trigger, that's where your true power lies, because there is power in silence. There's power in strategy, and there's power in waiting.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. And hopefully some of you watching now and later can feel some comfort with that. So that makes me think of another common issue that comes up with our people is they'll say, I need to find a lawyer who knows all about narcissism. What do you think about that? Is that important?
Yes. I will say it's important. And I also will give a little bit more detail on that because it's such a popular phrase right now. It's like trendy, right? Oh, he's a narcissist and she's a narcissist. Well, we know there's a difference between someone that actually has narcissistic personality disorder and someone who's displaying narcissistic traits, and some of these other cluster B personality disorders. And so you can't just go to anyone who is just flinging around the terms narcissism and oh yes, I understand he's a narcissist, but do you really? Do you understand how this works? Because if you go in there and you don't really understand the long game, you're going to have an attorney that's fallen into the same trap that you fell into because they're good at it. And that attorney's going to get frustrated. And then that attorney's going to be frustrated with you. And then they're going to drop your case or you're going to fire them. And it's just going to be a terrible situation. So yes, you do need somebody who understands how to deal with a specific set of behaviors that come from that type of person, because there is a pattern. I mean, it's not, we can talk to someone and within 2 minutes, you know exactly what you're dealing with. They're all largely the same. It's interesting.
All right. I'm like, should I even ask you how you know?
Yeah,
or is that a secret?
Sure. No, you can. The person usually comes to us and you can tell that the gaslighting has them just really on edge and questioning, and they will say things, they're phrases. And I knew I wasn't crazy. That's a good one. I know I'm not crazy, but he's trying to make me sound crazy. Like that's just one of those red flags where I'm like, oh, say more. Keep talking. Why would you say that? Oh, because I'm so emotional, and he just says I'm so emotional he can't deal with me. And I'm like, oh, there's another one.
Yeah.
It's just these phrases, and we know they do all tend to say the same things. That's what comes out of their mouth all the time. And so you hear the client who comes to us parroting that type of thing, and you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah. So we just got a question in it's, that all attorneys say they know in interviews. Everybody says.
Oh yeah.
So how would a client possibly know whether a lawyer knows or not what they're dealing with?
That is a really good question. So, I would just specifically ask them what type of training, like specialized training, do you have on this? Try to figure out if that person is just jumping on the bandwagon with narcissism. Um, and then ask them specific questions about um, certain behaviors. Like, if my ex did this, what would you say about that? You
Mhm.
know, because, and I have a feeling, and if my clients are any representation, we've all spent hundreds of hours on the internet researching all of these things and trying to figure out, oh, I'm not crazy, right? And then when you find some support for that, you keep researching and you keep researching. And I feel like if you learn to trust your gut and your instincts and you ask those specific questions of your attorney, listen for the bullshit, right? Because
Mhm.
we're really good at that. Really good at that. So, really short lesson. There's lies, right? Um, and there's truth and there's bullshit, right? Somewhere in there, there's mistake, but we won't focus on that right now. So, what's the truth? The truth is reality. Like, it is what it is. We can't explain it away. We can't make excuses. It just is. And a lie is, oh, I know the truth, but I'm choosing to disregard the truth, and I'm going to tell you something completely opposite of the truth.
Mhm.
And bullshit is when I don't know, I don't care enough to find the answer, and I don't care enough about you to tell you that I don't even know the answer. So I'm just going to say some bullshit, right? And
Right.
so if you see the person in the bullshit zone, just run away. Just run. I mean, if somebody doesn't know, they should be willing to be like, wow, I've never seen that situation before. Let me think
Yeah.
about that and get back to you. Do you care if I get back to you in 24 hours? Wonderful. Thank you.
Right.
You
And
shouldn't just,
that shows
yeah,
integrity.
exactly. Don't just make something up. And I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like a lot of attorneys just make things up. Just listen.
Yeah, yeah. We
You'll
have a
hear it.
friend who's an attorney in Canada, and the line that I love, he says is, I know what I don't know. And
Yeah.
so I can say, I don't know the answer,
Yeah.
but I'll try to find someone who does. And that's what we do with our clients too. Like, we have a weekly legal abuse support group. And when we tell people about, we say, like, there's things that we can help with, but when we don't know, we'll make friends with somebody who does, and we'll find out for you. They're not going to take on your case, but we'll talk to someone just like you, Beth, to say, like,
Sure.
here are some general questions that we get a lot, and maybe you know the answers. And I love the one you just gave about the bullshit zone.
Well, and I love so much that you guys are there and that you provide this service, because when people come on with us, they need you. It's not just a matter of like, oh, I'd like to have some support in that area. I mean, unless you want to pay us a ridiculous amount of money over and above what's actually necessary, because it may be necessary and also a lot of money. That's true. And it's worth every penny. But the support you provide for things like that is invaluable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go through it again, but we often use this metaphor of a table, and how, people in these high conflict situations are the surface, and there's four legs. There's probably more than four that they need to get through it and stay as stable as possible. But we talk about how a lawyer's job is really just to cover the law. I mean, wonderful that some lawyers, especially like you, deal with more, and we'll get into other resources that you provide, but that people can find other resources to handle some of the things that I think they mistakenly think their lawyer's supposed to handle, like all the
Yes.
coaching, or preparation of documents. Yeah, they can pay a lawyer to do it, but there's ways to do it that themselves, or by finding cheaper resources and possibly more effective, so I'm really glad that you mentioned that.
Yes.
Okay, so one of the things that we also talked about before that I wanted to get into was that why is money a core value? I remember you said this, and I said, "What? Money's a core value? That sounds
Everybody says
horrible."
that.
Why do you think money is
Everybody
a
says
core
that.
value?
Right. So in our firm, we have core values, right? Um, Not the least of which is money. So it's money, integrity, effectiveness, kindness, and communication. Everything in our firm is based on those core values. You will find that throughout the firm, how we handle clients, how we handle opposing counsel. But everybody's always like really put off by the money one. And so money is not just money in our pockets, because that's the first thing you think. Oh, greedy ass lawyer, right? They're going to do a bunch of stuff that we don't need just so they can get my money. That's actually the exact opposite of our core value. Yes, we need enough money to be effective in your case, but we want to take care of your money. So our money core value is more in being a good steward to your money because it's important to you. People don't have unlimited resources. And that's another reason why I say it's so important to have other support, because if you're misusing your attorney as a counselor, and calling multiple times a week and just consistent status updates, and you're quote unquote needy, and sorry if I'm triggering anybody for saying that, but that's really what it is.
I was like that. I was like that in the past.
Yeah.
So I,
And
guilty.
And I understand it though. Like you actually do need that support. You just shouldn't be seeking it from us, because that is going to cause your bill to go up. And if that's okay with you, great, I'll do it. I don't have a problem with it. We will do that for people. But having that real conversation at the beginning about the money, and not just surprising you with the things. And then when we're looking at, hey, should we file this petition for special relief? Should we file this? Whatever the situation is, we actually put money in the conversation. Is it worth it? Should we just wait for trial? Like, what do you want to do? So again, it's more the honest conversation.
Yeah, I think people really appreciate the transparency. And we know that communication in anything is so important, because part of what makes people like us in these situations, I'll just refer to myself too, as like a high conflict, well, not a high conflict client, but someone in a high conflict situation, is not understanding what's going on and feeling lost.
Yes.
And saying, why doesn't my lawyer ever call me back? And in some ways, when a lawyer is not responsive, even if the lawyer has clearly a good reason because they're busy with other people coming out of these coercively controlled relationships will feel like it's the relationship being replicated. The lawyer's giving me the silent treatment. I did something wrong. The lawyer doesn't like me but that's our own stuff that usually has nothing to do with the fact that the lawyer has a bunch of other clients and a bunch of other cases, and most of them also require that lawyer's attention.
Right. And one of the things earlier, along the lines of like, how do I know what to look for? Ask your lawyer if they're willing to schedule like a weekly meeting with you, a 10-minute check-in. Can we have a 10-minute phone call like every Friday, even if it's with a paralegal, just so I can ask questions, just so you can tell me nothing's going on? Because some people really just appreciate, hey, nothing happened, right? Because
right, and especially on a Friday, so they can sleep.
Right, exactly right. Or like, hey, my exchanges are Thursday nights. Can we have a 10-minute check-in call on Thursday afternoons? Sure, of course, in case you have any questions. You should have an attorney that is willing to do those things for you. And if they truly understand what you've been through, that will not faze them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now I had something in my notes. I never can read my writing later because I write so fast. But we had also talked about criminal defense in family law. Do you remember that?
Yes.
What is that?
Yeah,
what did
I do.
Did I write?
So we do criminal defense and family law. And there are so many situations where they're just peas in a pod, right? Because people abuse the criminal defense system and the criminal justice system when they're going through family law cases. And I'm sure many people listening right now have heard of how this happens. So all it takes in a criminal law case is for somebody to say you did something. That's it. That is it. That sets the wheels in motion for your entire life to get ruined. That's all it takes. So one call to the cops, and she hit me. Now what? That's all it takes. And you see that a lot when people are trying to gain leverage. So when a narcissist has lost control, oh, all I have to do is call the cops. That's interesting. Let me go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to go file for a protection from abuse order or a restraining order.
We have
And
several
then,
clients with that problem.
Oh, yeah. And then I'm going to say that they were outside my house, whether they were or weren't, who knows? But then maybe they'll get a criminal contempt charge as well. And now, because they're a criminal, that looks good at the trial for the family law, doesn't it? No, because now they're actually making you into that person they've been trying to say you are. You know, that crazy abusive person, and that's not you. But that is how they use the criminal justice system to make that work to their advantage.
Yeah, that's scary. I see someone said triggered, and I know there's at least another person on this who probably is as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So speaking of feeling triggered, one thing that I have felt in the past, and I know pretty much all of our clients feel, is that opposing counsel tends to be bullies. And we cannot understand how, they just lie on the record. They make up these false allegations. It goes through. They're supposed to be officers of the court. How can they get away with this? And how do they sleep at night? And we spend a lot of time hating that person and trying to figure out the psychology of why they would believe someone like my ex who's clearly a liar. So what's your thoughts on that?
My honest reaction, this is the truth telling here. Why would you have believed them? Because they're fucking good at it. Right? And you were with them all the time. This attorney sees them how often? But moreover, I think the bigger issue is like the universal law of attraction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So positivity attracts positivity. And likewise, negativity attracts negativity. So I feel like we shouldn't be surprised when the exes turn to people who act like them, whose their only goal is winning, right? Their ego is so big that they literally do not care what happens with the client's family. It's about winning, which is in perfect alignment with exactly what your ex wants, because they will do anything to win. It's not about the kids. It's not about anything that's good for anybody. It's about them winning. And there are a lot of attorneys that are exactly like that. And if you look at it that way and try to take the personal attacks out of it, you're going to sleep better at night anyway, because it's not about you. It's not. They say that about every single client ever. You know what really annoys me is when you go into court and the attorney starts telling the judge things as if they had been there. Well, she walked in and then she did this. And I'm looking at them like, were you there? Like, what? What are you talking about? Calm down. Calm down, sir. So I think if we can't be surprised that this is the type of attorney that takes that type of client. You just can't. And try not to take it personally. And if you get an attorney who isn't afraid of the bully and will fight back with rational behavior and stick up for you, and be strategic about it, that's fine, because the judge knows that attorney's like a blowhard too.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
that's
it's not
the word
a
I
surprise
always use
to
too.
anybody.
I always use blowhard.
Yeah, sure. It's not a surprise.
Yeah. I know. And we try to tell our clients too, like, keep in mind that this is a hired gun. This is a hired bully. This person's an actor too. They don't care about you. They really don't dislike you. They don't even know you.
They don't know.
And like you said, they'll do it to everybody. So instead of focusing on hating them, which I am guilty of myself.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's hard not to.
Yeah. So, okay. Now you also, I remember when you were telling me about your practice and you started talking about a little bit earlier, you're a bit different in terms of the support that you give your clients. And you talked about, and I want you to talk about it here, how you help them rebuild their home life. Can you get into that?
Sure. Yeah. So freedom and peace are really what is most important to us, right? However, we have to give that to you, and whatever that looks like for you, we'll support you through that. And oftentimes, when you're going through the emotion of actually having had the courage to leave, like the last thing that you can even begin to deal with is like, oh shit, I need a new insurance agent. I don't know how to sell my house. I don't even know what it's worth. Like, I didn't even ever look at the checking account because we know financial abuse is running rampant here. I don't know how to do anything. And we have all these resources. And like, what kind of jerks would we be to not share that with our clients? Like, if you need help in any area of your life, I guarantee you we have people we know, like, and trust that we will bring in on your case. So that's really what it's about, like a holistic support, because we're not just your attorneys, like we have other resources as well.
Yeah, and that's really comforting. And I know when we had talked to another friend from Canada who was more into pro se stuff, was saying, he said that a handshake introduction is better than a Google search.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because I'm not sending you to anybody that I don't know, like, and trust ever, because that's my reputation too. So,
yeah. Yeah, and that's also with Chris and I, with Been There Got Out, like part of why we like to do these interviews with people is to give our clients and our community a chance to meet people before we start recommending them. And we're also vetting people during interviews to be like, is this person really okay?
Yeah, and I think you have to do that. And to go back to your point earlier about like, what should you look for in your attorney? Ask your attorney, like, what kind of client they like. And if they actually don't know the answer to that question, say thank you very much and go find one that's actually thought about that.
That's a great question.
Because not all attorneys are fit for all clients. Because maybe you're talking to the person that your ex should really be talking to. And then how do those values align in court? Because a lot of people make that mistake where they're like, oh, I need a bully to deal with a bully. Really? Do you? Because I would argue very strenuously that you do not, in fact, want another bully, because now you have two people doing this, and here goes all the money right in the dumpster, and nobody's getting anywhere, and nobody cares what is actually good for your family.
Yep. I remember my divorce attorney, who was wonderful, said the same thing. He said, you don't want two bullies because there goes all the money.
That's exactly right. So what you need to do, ask your attorney, like, well, what is your ideal client? Am I that person? And if they say, here I am in the bullshit box, go somewhere else, like they should know the answer to that question.
Yeah, that is awesome. Okay, let's talk about your perspective on negotiating with a difficult person. And I had written the words red herring, which of course I forgot we were talking about.
I think I remember.
Okay.
So the difficult person will try to make you triggered about literally everything. So the ability for your attorney to narrow down what's actually important and convey that to you in a kind way is extremely important. So I mentioned kindness as being one of our core values. That doesn't mean that we're nice. Like, don't mistake kindness for weakness or for being nice, because nice means like, I did something for you, but maybe it put me out, right? Kind means I told you that because you needed to know, right? Like, if you have a friend that has spinach in their teeth, you're gonna tell them, because that's very not kind. It's very unkind to let them walk around looking like that. Just like when a client comes to us and they're like, you know, he did this, and I'm like, whoa, okay. I understand why all these things are so important to you, but we need to talk about what's actually important to the judge.
Yeah,
because
that conversation
that's what's going to get you what you want, right?
Right. Focus.
All of these other things this person is throwing at you and trying to say and texting you and this, that, and the third. Ignore the things that don't matter and respond appropriately to the things that do matter. So don't fall for the red herrings. There's so
Right.
many of them. If you
And this is where like
think,
other support can step in and listen to the concerns. So, and again, it's not that a lawyer is minimizing someone's concerns. It's that you're expensive. Your job is to translate the case into the law and argue it well. So you don't want your client to waste money talking about stuff that doesn't matter to the judge.
No, definitely not. And so one of our definitions of a good client is someone who's willing to listen to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you need to be reasonable. If you're mad at me because I told you what the judge actually cares about and it's not what you think the judge should care about, you're not a good client for me. Like, I'm not going to go argue something that you think is important if I know the judge is going to be sitting up there so annoyed because he's missing a tea time. Not happening.
Yeah. So, yeah. And we hear a lot on social media about like judges don't care. Why don't they just, this has to change. And I'm just like, well, but it is what it is. So let's talk about what you can do about it. Because none of that is happening anytime soon.
Yeah. And it can happen in increments. And another reason you need to make sure you have an attorney who knows what's going on, especially in cases like this. So like, is familiar with psychological evaluations and how to present that to a court. Because in many courts, they've never seen this type of thing. Like, the judges don't see it often because attorneys aren't always thorough and they don't always know what they're doing. And even if they do, clients don't always have those resources to be able to go get independent evaluations. But we can educate the judges, right? And so we do that through preparation for our direct examination and cross-examination. And so that's one of the most valuable reasons to hire an attorney and not do it on your own, is when you do need to provide some education to the judge, because they don't know the subject matter. They don't know, and it's so important to educate them.
I went to a conference for Jennifer's Law, which is Connecticut's newest law that expands the legal definition of domestic violence. Mm-hmm. And the author, Evan Stark, was there, wrote the book on coercive control. And what he said echoes what you say right here. He said the way to educate judges is to go in there and they have to hear your stories. Of course, it has to be presented properly, but that's the way to really educate the judges.
Yes. Yeah.
So much done. Yeah.
Talk about what's important, and lay it out in a really concise manner that isn't going to bore the judge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When people represent themselves, they tend to just, you're doing too much.
But Beth, I represent myself.
But you have also had years and years and years of experience,
mm-hmm.
and you're not in that place of overflowing emotion. Right now, you're like a calm, cool, and collected, I got this shit.
Right.
You're not like first time trial, oh my God, I'm triggered every 2 seconds. That's the person I'm talking about. Like, you really need support at that level.
Right. And that's something that I've also heard from other attorneys, that how it's easy to win against a pro se, someone who self-represents, because as soon as they get under their skin and get to the emotion, which is right there because it's our lives that we're defending, then we've lost because we've gotten distracted.
Yep.
And we often say to our community, you have to, however, whether you agree with it or not, to most other people, it's a business transaction and they're just trying to get you in and out as quickly as possible. They don't care and they won't care. And wanting them to care isn't going to do anything.
That makes me sad.
I know.
That is true.
Yeah, but there is the reality check of like, it is what it is. So what can we do? And there are ways, I think, in presentation to make them care a little bit. They are human. Yeah. We often talk about the use of narrative, even though they usually have, like 3 minutes if you even get a chance to talk, 3 to 5 minutes we've heard. But, storytelling and painting vivid pictures so that somebody can relate to it. So it's like this great, you got to write a really concise commercial that's focused on the issue at hand.
And one of the most effective ways to do that is through cross-examination.
Mm-hmm. So, can you talk about that a tiny bit?
Absolutely. So your cross-exam should really tell your story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Yes, you should listen to what the person said on direct. Yes, you should write down the inconsistencies. Yes, you should address those. But you should go in to that court hearing knowing your story and knowing how to tell it with your cross-exam questions, right? Because cross-examination isn't asking open-ended questions. Don't do that. You're making statements on cross-examination, right? So like, the car is green. Well, it's not green. Well, which car? Which car are you talking about? The car that you got out of at the Sheetz parking lot at 7:19 when we did the exchange of the children, that car was green. Well, it was like greenish blue and, well, like, maybe it was green. I don't know. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm maybe not communicating this very well to you, but let me try again. The car is green. And now that person on the stand is flustered. They're feeling crazy. Now they have to admit, yes, the car was green. And there's no way out of it because you only asked one question with one fact. They can say yes. That's what you want them to say. Yes, that's the very best answer to a cross-examination question. Yes, right? So then you keep going through it. One by one by one. One fact, one question, period. I don't care if you have to ask 40,000 questions. One fact, one question. Tell your story. Tell your story. So the car was green. You were driving the car. Yes. You had your girlfriend, Monica, in the passenger seat of the car. Yes. She was smoking a cigarette. No. You were 10 minutes late. Yes. You didn't call to say you were going to be 10 minutes late. No. When you got out of the car, you came over and, like, just tell your story. That's it.
This is so helpful.
Yeah, I don't care if they said yes or no. You're telling the story. You have a rhythm. You're developing it. Did you see how I threw in a no? Does anybody really care that Monica was smoking or not? Because she, or whatever her name was, yes. The judge now knows she was smoking, and that person is kind of looking a little bit like a liar.
I love this. This is actually helpful to me personally because I have 3 days of trial in the next 2 weeks, and it's for a case that as you can imagine, is like years old, and so it's been hard to narrow down. Even though there's an issue, there's lots of exhibits, and so what you're saying here about telling the story, I already had an idea, and now I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Absolutely. One fact per question. Just walk right through that story. And that judge is going to be looking at you like, oh, because they're listening and it makes sense. And we're not jumping from this time to this time to this time. And you're not giving them any wiggle room. You just repeat yourself.
Right. And simple. Everyone says keep it very, very simple.
Yep. The KISS method.
Yes.
Simple, stupid. Yeah.
Right. I love that.
The judge isn't all that interested. I mean, it's terrible to say, but many of them are not. But if you can tell a very pretty story and tie it up with a neat bow, and it's going to piss off your person on the stand. I guarantee you.
Oh, especially if you are pro se and it's your ex.
Piss them all the way off. And if they start saying something that flusters you, just keep walking through your story. You're telling a story. They're just like there, right? Yeah. They might say what you want them to. They might not, but you're going to tell your story.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay, let's talk about the abused woman stigma that you mentioned and how spreading awareness helps. And then remind me to ask you a question about FaceTime and kids.
Okay.
I know that was two things in one. So
that's all right.
Abused woman stigma.
One of the things that you see people coming out of relationships and they're in this just victim mindset, right? If there was like a magic wand I could wave for every one of the people coming out of this relationship and just like make one thing change, it would be that. Like, you're only the victim if you let yourself continue to be the victim. You don't have to be the victim in any situation. Like, you cannot change how they are going to react. You can't change how they're going to act. You can't change what they're going to do, but you can change how you react to it. Right? And I know that's really cliche and people say it all the time. But if you can stop taking things personally and just take the power you have, because it's a lot. It's a lot of power. Like, you don't think you have it, but once you realize you do, you're like, oh, thank God. There I am. Welcome back, me.
Right. And especially, especially with situations like these and people's like these, they tend to be so predictable. But when people don't know that, they think, oh, I'm just going to lose, like, it's going to be awful. This person's so awful. But when you know what's coming, you can adequately prepare for it, and you can get the right support to help you prepare properly, because we all know that one of the ways that we do better in any situation, but especially court, is having confidence and feeling sure about the truth and being prepared. Because the more prepared you are, the more calm you feel.
Yes. And so to that end, and I'm sure you guys provide this, but like, communication coaching is one of the quickest ways to get your confidence back and quit thinking of yourself as the victim. But as you know, because the gaslighting has you so like, I don't even know how to respond to this. They just texted me this, and this, and I don't know what to say. Like, no matter what I say, I'm going to be wrong. I'm going to look crazy. I don't know what to say. And you need to have somebody like you. You need to have an attorney that if you send them a message, it's like, hey, look, I know this is kind of unusual, but I need to know how to respond to this. They should be able to tell you how to respond to something in a way that helps you in court. Because we know we're going to have to introduce those text messages as evidence in 4 months. Why would we not tell you and guide you in your response, so that you start learning how to respond in a positive manner? Like, that's the only thing that really makes sense.
Exactly. And I know one thing that people often come to us with is they're like, I have this deposition, I'm so scared. And and a lot of times we'll have to talk them through, like, well, what are you worried about the most? Like, worst case scenario, what's the questions that's making you so, and by getting it out there, saying like, this is the worst thing that they could ask you, and figuring out a way to answer, and then getting used to answering it and feeling like no matter what I say, it's still going to be okay. And by telling the truth actually helps my credibility, because it might make me look bad and I'm still willing to be honest. Like, that's kind of empowering too.
I love that. Yes, because nobody's perfect. And if you try to
Right.
make yourself look perfect, you automatically discredit yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Automatically. I love that advice. That is great advice. And helping people, like, on the communication coaching side, so often you're like, gray rock, you know, you hear people do gray rock. No,
I know.
no, that is the last thing you should do in a custody case. If you're just in a divorce case, gray rock the shit out of that person. Who cares? If you have kids, absolutely not. That is the quickest way to disaster.
We say that too, parental alienation. There it is, right?
Really crafty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, alienation, we could go on and on about that.
I know. Yeah. That word will come up immediately.
Oh, it
all
sure
the
will.
time.
It sure will.
Yeah.
But yeah, no gray rock.
Right. But that's a whole other topic. Maybe we can get into that on a completely separate Instagram Live. Okay, so I want to, before I forget, ask the question that we got a call from Europe this morning, and she asked us something, and I said, this is a universal problem, at least in the English-speaking world, with difficult cases where somebody has very young children, and part of the order says they're supposed to FaceTime, but the kids won't sit still. I said, you know what? I'm going to be talking to a lawyer in an hour. Let me ask her. Any advice for when little children, I know this is completely out of nowhere, but little children are supposed to be FaceTiming somebody and they won't sit still. And the one parent is worried that he or she isn't going to follow the order, but they don't have control over these little kids. How do you
if we're talking like really little kids, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
this
like
drives
a
me
2-year-old, like a 2-year-old.
Okay, so they still need supervision, right? Like you can't just leave them alone in the kitchen, like, hey, buddy, see you in an hour. Like
Mhm.
you can't do that, right? So my advice would be to literally hold the phone and follow their ass around.
Right.
Seriously, record it, ask to record it, get the permission from the other person to record it, and they should have no problem with that, right? Because they're not doing anything wrong. Why would you have a problem with that?
Love it.
So we're
Love
going to
it.
record it, get the permission, record it. Don't ever record things and think you can use them in court, because in many states you cannot. But
Mhm.
get the permission, record it. I don't, just hold your phone, walk around, and just like this with little Jimmy, and wherever he wants to go. Guess what? We were on FaceTime for 45 minutes. You saw what you saw. It was what it was. I did not violate any court order. I was not trying to get him to not talk to you. You know, sprinkle in like a, hey, Jimmy, let's say hi to dad.
Yeah, good.
Just do what you need to do. Like, don't make it more than what it needs to be. And that is the worst, because it's so inconvenient. It literally ruins all your routines. It is such bullshit. Like, no 2-year-old is going to sit in front of a phone. I don't even like what. It's
I know.
ridiculous.
Part of the
But
order.
just do it until it changes.
Yeah.
Don't
Okay. And then we just that. Thank you again for that answer. I saw someone say, I so needed this. Now we got another one. What about teenagers who don't want to spend overnights with
Oh
one
God,
parent?
yeah, that's a hard one, because that's going to depend on your judges in large part. So many judges will tell you, okay, well, what would you do if your teenager just felt like going to do drugs? You gonna let them do that? Right? Or what if your 10-year-old doesn't want to wear a coat and it's -10 outside? You just gonna let them do that? And they treat it as discipline. Oh, so what was the consequence if they didn't want to go to their dad's? Which I find really interesting, because now you're punishing someone for not wanting to do something, which you think dad would be pissed about, because now he's like the punishment. But that's beside the point. So a lot of judges look at it that way. So the answer is, I think that's jurisdictional. And I think that in many cases, the only thing you can do is file some type of modification, whatever's appropriate where you are, and bring that to the court's attention. Because when they're teenagers, the court is likely to listen to them in many instances.
That's a good
But
point.
yeah, be wary of letting the kid do whatever they want. And if you have a child that is like, I'm not going, no, you can't make me do that, I am not going, then you're going to have to document what's happening there. And you're going to have to, I would say, give some type of consequence for the kid for not going, just to
Interesting.
cover your ass.
Really, really interesting in terms of discipline.
That's the only way to be 100% safe.
Yeah.
And not get a contempt.
Great advice. Great advice. Okay, so Beth, I know I've kept you on for so long, so I just want to start winding it up, unless there's anything else you want to say. How can people find you? Anything else they should know?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is just focus on what you want your life to look like, because it's so easy when you're in the middle of battles like this to focus on the bad things. And when you focus on the bad things, more bad things will come, right? Like, your life doesn't revolve around this person anymore. You have to stop letting it. Like,
great point.
The court stuff is what it is, but you have this wonderful, beautiful new life where you have freedom and peace over here. Focus on that. Like, because if you leave and you're still focused over here, they still have that control over you. Like, focus on your freedom and your peace, and you'll get more positivity coming to you. That's the way the world works. And as far as reaching us, we are on every single social. Tibbott Richardson, it's TIBBOTT Richardson, RICHARDSON.com. And we are on Insta, we're on Twitter. You can go to our website.
What states can you practice in? I know you're Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. We also have capabilities for Ohio and New Jersey.
Oh, all right. That's good to know.
Yeah.
All right.
And if you need recommendations for anyone else like in the entire country, we have vast networks of people who are very experienced in this type of thing. So I'm happy to provide referrals.
Excellent. I think we're going to be hitting you up for people that are clients.
Please do.
That's excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much, Beth. And I'm going to post this as soon as we get off, and then you'll get the link and feel free to share it. And I hope this has been helpful for everybody. It was for me personally, and definitely some great advice towards the end with little kids on FaceTime and teenagers not wanting to sleep over the ex's house.
Thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful. I always love to get on and spread some awareness and hopefully help some people. So
you definitely did. And more when the recording goes up.
Thank you.
All right. I'll catch up with you soon.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.